Welcome to the Insights to Communicate podcast with Adam Probalski, where market and opinion research come together with public affairs and PR.
All right, welcome to the show. Let's get started. We've got Chris Keohan here. He hails from Boston. He's got a political shop and a more of a public affairs shop. And I'll let him introduce himself and tell us how he got to the place he is. And it's a long journey, but kind of fun to hear. Go for it, Chris.
Yeah, so the founder of CK Strategies, which handles all of the campaign work that we still undertake, and I'm also a partner in Shawmut Strategies Group, which is a public affairs firm here in Boston, but we actually do multi-state lobbying across the country in multiple states. I started back in 2003, right after graduating college. I traveled around the country doing advance work for Senator Kerry's campaign for president, and back in 2007 settled back here in Massachusetts, and by 2010 had started my own shop, and we've grown into one of the biggest political firms in Massachusetts since then.
That's awesome. So do you do you take on pretty much any kind of level campaign, or do you focus just on the big stuff? I mean, if I'm running for legislature and I got 50 grand, will you take me? Or you got to be like, no, you got to have $1 million and we're not going to talk to you?
Always depends on the race. We actually like to do a lot of the smaller races in Massachusetts in particular, just because that's where a lot of our lobbying is as well. So it helps us keep our relationship strong at the legislature as things grow. But we'll do races anywhere from city council all the way up to statewide and federal elections.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Obviously, we like bigger projects, but it's smart strategically to take some of those smaller ones just from a geographic standpoint, or keep relationships going. Like you said, it's kind of fun.
Exactly.
Is there like an early job that you had, a project you had that like kind of defined your direction and kind of gave you some perspective on what the future was going to look like? You know, it doesn't have to be when you're 18; it could have been when you were 30. But like that project that was like, oh wow, kind of enlightened your future.
Yeah, honestly, I think it was early on in the career. It was 2005. I got a call to go down and do field work in Virginia for Tim Kaine's governor's race in 2005, and they put together there were probably 150 of us paid staff, because Virginia's the Wild West of campaign finance. It's unlimited donations. I mean, I think even the offices we had were all donated, and the folks I met there, everyone, a huge amount of us stayed in politics. We've stayed in touch, and it's helped with a national list of people that I can call anytime there's something popping up in a different state. And just the stuff that we learn there continues to resonate, and it's a lot of the strategy I put together when it comes to field and on the ground organizing, I learned right from that.
You said something that really resonates with me. Kind of the early projects or building relationships that kind of transcend over time, and people that you keep in touch with. That I just had someone who I worked with 20 years ago. She her kid reached out to me for an internship, and of course I'm going to take the kid as an intern. So I think there's some perspective by maybe younger people, or maybe a lot of different people at different ages, that the fix is in. Well, you have relationships from back in the day, and those relationships are what carries you. And I'm new in this business, and I don't, we're doing general, and I can't do that sort of thing. Like, is that? I think some people think that's unfair. But as far, in my perspective, it takes work to keep those relationships up. You've got to continuously talk to people and provide value and be a friend and be a resource. Like, can you talk about that at all? Like the fact that it's not just, or maybe you think otherwise, but it's not just like, you know people and then it just gets done. You've got to like groom that relationship.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even with the interns that are coming into our shop every year, that's the one thing I tell them is this is a relationship business, and a lot of the the value that you bring to a project or you bring to a client are the relationships you've built over time. To be able to make a phone call. One of the best pieces of advice I got when I was first starting my shop was, how do I price things? And someone said, you know, if you can make something and you can get something done with one phone call, you're not charging them for that one phone call. You're charging them for all the years that you put into being able to do it in that one phone call. So don't undersell yourself. And you know, it feels like it's a lost art that a lot of people coming out of college don't quite understand. The amount of times I have to say, don't send it as a text, pick up the phone, make the phone call, talk to someone, build a relationship, become a trusted source for them. If you're getting into the media side of these things, like you, it's all about relationships. If people trust you, if people like you, that's how you continue to grow in the business. If nobody likes you or nobody talks to you or nobody knows who you are, how are you going to get word of mouth business? I mean, we don't do any advertising. It's all word of mouth.
Right. It's true. In our businesses, there's no, you can send an email, you can, you know, there's not really advertising opportunity. It's building that
Yeah.
trust level. I think that's really hard for some people, younger people specifically, to kind of understand that there isn't a formula. I mean, there you can actually follow some formulaic, approach to building relationships, but for the most part, it's just having human interaction, and that's, I think, hard for some people.
Yeah. Well, it's just keep maintaining the relationships. I mean, it's a funny little story, but a buddy of mine from campaigns all the way back in 2004 during Kerry, he's out in San Francisco now. We've stayed in touch, and my wife during the holiday season said, you know, my son James wants a Steph Curry jersey. Well, he couldn't order any online, but I was able to pick up the phone, have a conversation with him, talk politics for a little bit, and said, "Hey, can you do me a quick favor? Can you swing by the arena and buy the jersey? I'll pay for everything and just ship it over." That's how we ended up getting a Steph Curry jersey. That these are
Yeah.
relationships. It's not just I'm calling and asking for things only when we need them. It's we like to talk. We've known each other since 2004, and you can call they become friends more than they are anything else.
Yeah, it's kind of, one of the beautiful things about this business, and probably one of the last, and maybe other people would say otherwise, but the handshake nature. If a consultant calls me, even if I don't have a serious relationship with them, consultant calls me and says, "We need a poll. We have a project." We're just going to get started on that. I don't. Nobody needs to write me a check. And if I
Correct.
ask the consultant, if I say, "Am I going to get paid on this?" and the consultant says, "Yes, you will," I know the consultant's got that whole thing wired in, and they're going to make sure I get paid. I don't, I don't need the check up front. I just know in this business that, because if a consultant who's has a 20-year career screws me, like, it's not the end, but it's a problem, and everybody's going to know about it. Like,
Yeah,
so it doesn't. It's a cool handshake business that, I really appreciate that part of this business.
absolutely.
Um,
And you think about campaigns and the hours you work and the just the craziness of a campaign cycle. Like you build relationships with people. It's almost like dog years. You spend a few months with someone, and you might as well have known them your entire life.
so I think that's something that fascinates me. I talk about that all the time. Our CEO worked on campaign. I've worked on campaigns, and that sleeping on the couch, working till wee hours of the morning kind of a scenario. It doesn't really align with uh, the workers' rights kind of environment that we're in. And so, like, how do you reconcile that from a political perspective? The fact that there's, you know you're not getting paid overtime, and in cases, obviously not in this point in your career because you run your business, but like, how do we talk to younger people about, like, no, you're not taking a sick day unless you're in the hospital, and you shouldn't, you shouldn't leave at 5 o'clock when everybody else is working till midnight. Like, how do you talk to people about that and make it clear that it's worthwhile and you don't need to, fight for your right for a vacation day when we're in the middle of a campaign?
Honestly, I think it goes back to that whole comment about it being almost like a dog year. You know, you work one campaign together, you work two campaigns, you know, people move up the ladder so much faster in campaigns than probably any other business in the world. So you weed out the people that they're just not meant to do this job, and it's not an easy job. And I respect anyone that even gives it a shot once, but the people that stick with it and stick with it after 3 or 4 or 5 years, they're a lifer, and they get used to it. And I missed stuff with my family all the time. Before, and now, you move up so fast. Once you get past the campaign manager level of a congressional race, and you start your own firm or you become part of a firm, the hours get easier, the pay gets better. I mean, my first job in Virginia, I mean, I don't even want to tell you what they paid us per month. I mean, it was, forget about the overtime. You could barely live. I needed donor housing,
Right.
but you know, it builds that camaraderie with people that, again, we talk about this being a relationship business. Like we went through a lot in that campaign, and everyone makes sure they stay in touch. And even if you haven't talked to someone in years, you pick up the phone, they're going to find a way to help you. And that's what you get out of this. The overtime would be great. And you see more and more campaigns that are organizing and have unions officially now,
Right.
that work that stuff out. But you do start to miss some of the grill and the loading dock, making burgers so everyone
Right.
can stay even later. There's nothing
Yeah.
better than a stocked full fridge of beer and burgers,
Yeah.
in a camp
Yeah.
shop.
The late night pizza is what drives you to finish the job.
Exactly.
Um, all right, so I want to talk specifically about your business because I see so often in the world of political consulting, people who are very restricted in their view of the world of I'm a political consultant and I run campaigns, or they grow their firms to do more things in that political realm. But as a pollster, we work more for government and corporate and nonprofit than necessarily we do for political. So I mean, we've grown as a company, and I have an appreciation for what you've got because you've got the political chops, but you've grown a public affairs firm where you do land use and other advocacy work. You talk about how you made that transition or how you realized that, like, oh wow, there's a whole nother profit center here. I can use these relationships, these skills in a whole nother world, a whole nother realm outside of just talking to voters.
Yeah, I mean, particularly when it comes to land use and some of the advocacy work that we do, we treat everything like it's a campaign. So we come from the same mentality of, all right, instead of elect Bob Smith, it's I want to build this building. So let's get this building passed. In Massachusetts, I know it's a little different all over the country, but here in Massachusetts, community organizations play a huge role, particularly in Boston, for getting any type of project approved, whether it's 9 units all the way up to 900 units. So being able to have that reputation in the community of someone that puts together grassroots advocacy type campaigns on the political side, it really helped us when we started doing it with the community associations, because they're the same activists that help you on a campaign. So they know that if you're bringing a project to them, that it's something you trust the project management team, the developer themselves, the contractors that they're going to bring on. And we work with, my firm actually represents more unions than any other firm in the state. So they know that when we bring you a project, it's going to be good for the community. We're not just there to turn a huge profit and then walk away. We had even a small project that got delayed numerous times because of COVID. The developer stuck with it, and they presented in front of Boston this year, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the local organization that we had to meet with, we probably met with them 10 times over the course of the whole project, said we've never had community engagement like this. The developer went out and knocked on doors with Chris and his team, talked to the community, said what the project was about, didn't just attend events, wrote checks to projects that we care about in the community, like became a part of the community. And it was overwhelmingly approved. It was a small project, but it was not an easy project to get passed. And in the community we were in, and the type of project that they wanted to do, it was right on a MBTA line, our transportation system. And in a neighborhood, and it was going to be a building, not just a house. So people needed to trust it was going to be done right, and it took years to actually show them that, yeah, this is the type of developer you want in the neighborhood.
So two things strike me. One is it's not. I think some people's view of advocacy or getting project land use approvals is kind of like oh, you're the lobbyist, everybody, you just make the calls or show up to the meeting and they're going to push the yes button. It's not like that, right? Even if you
Yeah.
have really strong relationships, you've got this. You've got to give them the backup to vote yes, even if you've got even everybody on that board is a friend, and they want to organically support you, or they even support the project. In order to get to make sure they're comfortable as policymakers and there's community support, you've got to demonstrate it. You've got to bring people along with them. It's not
Oh yeah,
just push the button and go.
exactly. No, we went out and made sure, and it's every project we do, whether it's big or small. We wanted, excuse me, support letters. We wanted, at the public hearings, we wanted neighbors to come in and say, exactly what they put in their letters. That this is community outreach. This is what our organization was founded on. Other developers could learn from this, and it becomes a word of mouth thing that, yeah, we have relationships with a lot of the ZBA board members and elected officials in the various cities we work in, but they still have to get reelected every 2 or every 4 years. They're not just going to do something because I pick up the phone and say, hey, this is a really good project, let's go. It's not the 1960s. We have to show the effort and show that we're willing to engage with the community and do what they want.
So other consultants, like I said, the ones that kind of feel or are very restricted to the political world, I feel a lot of the times when you talk to them about doing work outside of campaigns, they'll say like, oh no, we don't want to do that. They have like ethical concerns about working for a public agency or doing public affairs like advocacy work. And we don't know each other well, Chris, but it seems like there are defined lines, and relationships are great, but there's a clear line between what's appropriate and what's not, and nobody's running around with brown bags of cash anymore, and if they do, they go to prison, right? So how do you talk to a political consultant who says like, I don't want to get involved in doing lobbying work because I help these people get elected, and it's not appropriate? Like, how do you speak to those people, or just in general, how do you say like, look, what I do is, how do we as political consultants say like, what I do is not wrong, it's not inappropriate, it's perfectly fine?
Well, the funny thing is, with our firm Shaman Strategies, I'm technically a registered lobbyist, but I don't view myself as a lobbyist.
Right.
I don't set foot in the state house virtually ever. What I handle are the grassroots piece of this, because again, like you said, it's not the smoke filled back room days of the past. Like this elected officials want to hear from their constituents. And if the phone rings and they get more no's than they do yeses, or yeses than nos, like the community is what sways people. So while there's your regular lobbyists that, yes, they still have to go in, present, speak at hearings, I don't do that. I actually am the part of the firm that does grassroots advocacy. So if we're organizing phone calls into the state house, if we are doing digital ads, if we're doing direct mail, urging people to contact their legislator, that's what I do, so that when my partners walk into the state house, they don't just say, well, here's our client and this is why it's a good idea. They're walking in and saying, here's our client and this is a good idea. And by the way, we did a poll and the public said that 78% of people approve of this bill. And by the way, over the last 5 days, 1,500 phone calls have been generated to members of the legislature in support of this. So it's not the old school lobbying that people think about.
Right. It's a much bigger picture, and I love the fact that you brought up polling, because that's a component of it. as the pollster, it's easy for me to say, like, it would be easy for me to say that polling is like the answer to everything, but it's not. It's like one of those components. Those 1,500 phone calls and that direct lobbying activity and the poll and the ad you take out in a paper, supporting the project. All those things are kind of almost equally as important. They're just part of that process of building up towards that approval.
Exactly.
Very cool. Okay, so go back into the reaches of your career. Is there like some mentor, some moment where like someone was like, right there for you, or gave you some piece of advice, or someone you need to give a shout out to because they were an important part of your success?
It's got to be Roger Lau, he was Elizabeth Warren's campaign manager for president. He's the number two at the DNC right now. He gave me my start. I literally between college and going to work for Senator Kerry, I was actually working construction, just waiting for the right job. I was actually going to be a teacher and coach football. And I was on a ladder one day building a school in Massachusetts, doing some of the wiring, and Roger Lau called, and he's been one of my best friends since, and he's been a friend and mentor for as long as I know. And there are many jobs that I took just because Roger said, this is something you should do. It'll be good for your future. And they might not have all been victories, but they've all led me down the path to owning my own business and being successful. And whenever I'm in DC, I always hit them up, and we always find a way to get together.
That's great. I love those stories of mentors that you get to, they get to see your success, and you get to, feel good about reaching back out to them and keeping in touch with them, because there's a ton. I've had a ton of those. They're great.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got a couple different businesses. You got a bunch of different partners and associates. Let's talk about your tech stack, because I'm always fascinated by this. How do you work? Are you like Google Docs or Microsoft, or are you Slack or Zoom, or how does your team work and communicate?
So we're definitely a Slack firm, for sure. When it comes to video conferencing, it's really whatever the client wants. We've got subscriptions to all of them, just depending on what the client likes. I usually just hop right on Zoom if nobody tells me one way or another. Then Google Docs for any of the stuff that we have to share. But we've got an in-house design team that they put together our own self-designed set of self-fillable forms. So if someone comes in and says we need a website, we need a mail piece, we need digital ads, we fill out the forms. It goes right to our design team, and they immediately start on the project. That way, it's just uniform, and they're not getting a random email from me, another email from a partner. It's all different format. Just everyone has to use the same forms.
That's super smart. I love that. We do a decent amount of kind of custom tech internally ourselves, but I think that's so important for efficiency, and I'm sure for your graphic and technical teams, I'm sure they highly appreciate not having that barrage of different communications, but they get every information. That's cool. And it probably makes you feel good, because like you get to do the data dump, and then you're going to get something back that you can start to edit probably.
Exactly. And honestly, you're right. It helps with the efficiency, and it just makes sure that they're getting everything that they need. We put everything you could possibly imagine on these forms, and if it has nothing to do with what we're doing on this project, just NA and move on,
Right.
But it really has helped with efficiency. And honestly, as we've grown, it's become more and more important, because, as we brought in partners and the team has grown, everyone always has a different style of writing. So if we format it in one way, it makes it easier for the designers.
That's awesome. All right. So you wake up in the morning. What are the first three apps or news sources, things you have to go to start your day, or not? Maybe you just like take a jog or something.
No, unfortunately, there's not a lot of jogging going on with I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, so it's let's get them off to school, and then immediately it's probably Huffington Post, Boston Globe, New York Times.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have we do have 2 Massachusetts newsletters that go out every Monday through Friday. That, if you're in politics and you're not reading them religiously, you're crazy. But it's, Political Playbook and
Right.
and Master List here in Massachusetts. It's kind of our version of the AP. It's State House News Service.
Right.
It's like getting your daily clips all quickly and right around 8 a.m.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Very well. Now I know anybody who wants to get involved in Massachusetts politics, now they know where to go, uh,
Right.
or just call you. And like what apps, like non-business apps, can you not live without?
Anything sports related. It's just, I've been a sports nut my whole life. I played football for as long as I can remember, and now somehow I'm finding a way to coach football, basketball, and baseball with my kids. So, um, anything that I can do to sit down and just take a break and not think politics for a few minutes, and something sports related is what makes me happy.
Awesome. All right, to wrap, give me your mantra. Give me your words to live by, whether for yourself or you tell other people. What's the that one thing that is always running through your mind?
It's something my mother always used to say to me, and I'll say it a little less colorful than she did, but she always used to say, careful of the butts you kick on the way up. They're the ones you kiss on the way down. So be good to everyone.
It's wise words from your mother. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, it's not so easy sometimes to be kind to everyone, but it's important. We gotta do a better job at that all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, Chris, super appreciate you being a part of this, and we'll hopefully talk to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This has been Insights to Communicate with Adam Probalski, president of the woman and Latina-owned market and opinion research firm, Probalski Research.